Live. Good evening, everyone. Here we are for the day 19 of NEP Series 2020, and we are here with eminent speakers, another rocking session for one of the rarest of topics which have never been discussed before. And we do have experts talking on this topic, that is developmental and contextual needs of the children. So, what are the contextual needs of the children? Let us hear from each and everyone. Let us hear Let us hear from each and everyone what are the developmental and contextual needs of the children. There is a lot hidden in these two topics. So we will take the pleasure to invite Dr. Emery Mia, ma'am, if she is there online, ma'am. No, I think she's not it. So I will request all the members over here to let us all pray together for Marin Mia, ma'am. She is under severe ill health, and we would like to offer a blessings to her. She has been conducting sessions through her hospital with great spirit and resilience. So let us all pray for her for just 1 minute and give her all the best wishes for speedy recovery. So warm regards to Marin Mia, ma'am. Please get well soon. Hope to see you back soon in action. We will all miss you. So, my next speaker for the day is Dr. Adrian Desley, sir. Are you there, sir? Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, pleasure to have you, sir. I would like to introduce Dr. Desley, sir. Honorable Ambassador Dr. Adrian Desley, Special Envoy and Permanent Representative of the African Union Youth Assembly in the European Union, Country Director in Barbados at the World Peace and Climate Change Diplomatic Organization. He is a global affairs advisor at the World Culture Arts Society of Singapore and state representative of youth development and relations at Berlin State to Barbados. He received the World Peace Award by World Peace Track Sweden. He received the Lifetime Global Media Award from Global Education Professional Excellency Academy, Portugal. He holds a master's in organizational behavior and a doctor of philosophy in human resources from the Commonwealth Open University. A pleasure to have you, sir, to hear from you the topic and the much needed missing loops in the NEP 2000 series of developmental and contextual needs of children. Most pleasure to welcome you on the board, sir.
The pleasure is really mine to be here. I would like to begin by thanking Igniting Dreams of Young Minds Foundation for the invitation to speak on the development and contextual needs of children. My goal in this presentation is to examine educational awareness and access to engage our people in ways to look at education and how it's being disseminated in our among our vulnerable in the community. It is intended to promote greater understanding of the needs of the vulnerable sector and to provide strategic outlook of the real barriers to community education. I would like to begin by identifying and considering some barriers to education in vulnerable communities. First of all, education and access. After COVID 19, people are simply depleted in their resources, which means that problems and situations that require finances are now burdens to the vulnerable among us. It is also important to note that there are different types of problems that are presented to the vulnerable in our community. Those in higher sectoral brackets they're cushioned from those financial practical impacts. Now, first, when we talk about the higher class bracket in our society, we have to remember that they always have some form of structural environment supporting them. They have greater social awareness and also access to learning outside of the school context. They might even have a family structure of behavior development support, which the vulnerable community, the poor among us, don't usually have. So it's very important, therefore, that we call our leaders to look seriously at the vulnerable in our community. Many of the problems presented to the vulnerable are systemic because lots of schools, lots of organizations that were implemented years ago were implemented with the rich in mind. They were created, the lots of our large schools were created for persons who could afford education. Having lived in Brazil, I can tell you that education is one of the greatest resources that the vulnerable community do not have great access to. With education, we can change many things in our societies. And so, children in low socioeconomic and marginalized communities across the globe are hardest hit by COVID, as well as the social impact of changing times that we are living in. We have a war right now taking place that has shifted resources, from China to Barbados, for example. We're having a great impact on our people, and this is due in part to lack of access to trade routes, whether it's between Barbados and Africa, which we are seeking to do through our very own Prime Minister of Barbados. It means that we need a holistic view of the problem of access education. Decision makers must understand that they should not stop at a single education project. That education has to be accessible to every single person. We, in our capacity, find ways to help those that we can help. But there's only so much that we can do as it relates to opening educational pathways to transformation in our society. We can empower our public sector by getting them involved in grassroots projects to empower our young people. I believe 100% um, on this platform that we need to find a way to make sure that girls and women have access to education. Today, more girls than ever go to school. However, despite progress, women and girls continue to face multiple barriers based on gender and intersections within factors of our society, such as age, ethnicity, poverty, and disability. And it is equal to say that boys also face challenges. They might not face as many challenges as girls, but they do face challenges. And these challenges include gang related violence and lack of parental guidance and access to quality education, also especially within the vulnerable communities. They go readily quicker to systems of um, jail systems and stuff, because again, lack of influence. I would like to talk about the harmful gender stereotypes and wrongful gender stereotyping that we have in our society. Child marriage and early and unintended pregnancies. And we might identify with the unintended pregnancies here in Barbados, and persons maybe in Asia might identify with the child marriages, as well as Africa. We have gender based violence against women and girls, and lack of inclusive and quality learning environments is very, very, very um, systemic in our society. Poverty and financial hardship. This can lead to girls dropping out of school, to work financially to support their families. We know that when there are food shortages, like what we are beginning to experience in extreme poverty, girls are often the ones that miss out, because they have to, and they're fed less and last. So what do we do? What do we do to help our world? We need to make education accessible. We have to consider the cost of school. The cost of school can lead many girls and boys in education not to be prioritized by governments, because under pressure situations, governments withhold and have to divert investment. It isn't that they don't want to, but sometimes some of the other priorities that are put forward are things like, how do we feed our community? And also, how do we get overseas investment and foreign currency? Because of entrenched gender roles, boys and girls, boys, are more likely to get, promoted in sports, for example. and girls are expected to provide for their family. So expected to provide it for the family in an emotional sense, but not necessarily in a financial sense. So we have more boys going to work, especially within the vulnerable communities. This means that educational support to access education, we have to look at evolving a whole base perspective in our community for families who can not only afford, because some families can only afford food, some families can't afford to eat and send their children to school. Growing up in a marginalized environment, I can tell you that sometimes the most vulnerable among us gets forgotten. Lack of we might have lack of safe toilets, menstrual products, clean water, because of where we are located. Many girls around the world have little access to sanitary products, and this is something that has to change. So when we talk about a whole community approach, I'm talking about the concept that we have in Barbados that says it takes a village to raise a child. And this ultimately means that we have to restrict governments from showing favoritism towards a particular gender. And my first thought on gender is really on educational access. When we talk about educational access, what are some of the barriers that have come up against educational access? Because how can we ask our young people in our community to go out there and change the world if they don't have access to education? And in the face of tight funding due to the pandemic and the war, like we had mentioned earlier, governments must never put profit over people. They must work closely with community grassroots organizations to offer support. According to an article that I read in the UNESCO website, all people have the right to non-discrimination and equality in education. And despite progress made over decades, vulnerable groups such as girls, women, refugees, and migrants and persons with disabilities are more likely to suffer. And having lived in Brazil, again, one of the biggest examples that I can use is how poverty is completely dispersed among the community. But then you have these pockets of society where resources are not being and especially to those who identify as African American. Um, we also talk about we need to look at community needs. We must walk around our community. When I walk around my community, I can see the stark difference between the haves and the have-nots. And if we're going to be real about bringing change to our society, we can quickly acknowledge that the gaps between those who need and those who don't need is a very wide gap. And we're supposed to be working towards closing that gap. There are 3 billion young people, and clearly, young people have a critical role to play in leading initiatives and developing policies when they and when they are involved in the process. It means that there will be a significant transformation taking place within the context of society, also within the culture of society towards women, girls, and young boys. Now, research have shown that small island states, coastal regions, and the poor in our community will be most vulnerable, especially due to climate crisis that we are facing right now, because we simply lack the resources to withstand those climate stresses that we talk about. We can't talk about sustainable development. We can't talk about education. We can't talk about any of these things now in a pocket of society. We have to now identify the links between these situations. We have to understand that we have to take a whole system approach because climate change is impacting our coral reefs through coral bleaching, disease outbreaks, and ocean acidification. We can no longer say it is going to be the responsibility of one body, one scientist. It is our responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity to do what is right now, to stem the tide of change for our young people now. That's the time that we have. We don't have tomorrow. It is important not to dismiss the needs of our vulnerable. and take into account that it takes a village to raise a child. We must take into account the feelings and concerns of our community members. The young and the old are essential for, plugging this gap in our society. Governments must do better at capturing the real individual needs. In an article that I would have read by Phineas Rucker titled Why Global Citizens Should Care, it said that children living in poverty face many barriers to accessing an education. Some are obvious, like not having a school to go to, while others are more subtle, like a teacher at school not having had training needed to help children learn effectively. Increasing access to education can improve the overall health and longevity of society. It can grow economies and even combat climate change. Yet, in many developing countries, children and access to education is limited. Barriers like language and gender roles and resilience and child labor are issues that we need to address. We can no longer take our titles and believe that it's just for us. It's for influence so that we can make a change. The problem of educational inequality is a concern. And the problem of education inequality is one of the major issues that restrict the development of education. And this is according to the Atlantis Press. Education inequality among girls is in impoverished areas is one of the main characteristics and manifestations of educational inequality. Girls dropping out of school in remote impoverished areas have not been solved effectively. So let's look around ourselves and ask ourselves, what are we really, really doing for our community? Therefore, we must urge our leaders to create problem solving tools to the dropout rate in our schools, to the teenage pregnancies in our schools, to to rapes and such in our schools, to gang violence in our schools. And we're not talking just about a pocket of society in Barbados. We're talking about a global, we have taken a global approach because we can't look at education only in Barbados. We must consider educational policies and how they affect other regions as well. That might be under a cultural bias, for example. And so girls in education must be looked at. Boys within the context of crime and violence must also be addressed. We must make studies and research available so that that data can be fed into a system in our government so that we can look at the ways that we're really actually helping our society. We must also understand that there are universal rights that each individual has. The right to education is one of them. The right to security is another. The right not to be, attacked for your religious beliefs is another one. If we are going to move our world forward and pull the resources out of our society to feed the vulnerable in our society, we must remember that not every single problem is faced by each individual in the same way because some of them have compounded interest because they have lack of financial resources, lack of education, lack of opportunities. A big issue of inequality is a lack of opportunity because of where you were born. Many people don't know that we're actually ostracized and sometimes marginalized because of where you were born in a particular society or community. We must ask our governments using our social system to conduct assessments of identifying the gaps in our society and looking at ways that we can plug those gaps. We must also have community needs assessment done by professionals. We can have psychologists do it. We can have counselors do it. So we can have psychotherapists do it. But what is important is that it is done because we're not going to pull our society forward by focusing on our past. We have to focus on our current youth. We have to ask ourselves, what are government agencies, non-governmental organizations, um, private sector organizations really doing to provide a framework for developing and identifying services that are necessary in our communities? For example, when a boy leaves school early, what kind of support systems are really available in our community to help him? And when a girl has to leave school for one reason or another, what kind of social support do they have available? Some of us have social systems in place in our countries, but not every country has access to social systems. It means that we must look at partnerships with other countries like Venezuela and Cuba, our immediate neighbors, Guyana, and Trinidad. We must ask ourselves, what are people in other countries doing right, and how can we copy the model? Because we have to take a whole systems approach. It means that we need policy change. We need to examine what policies that were in place from the 60s that is no longer serving our young people and our community. We need to look at systems change. What systems were implemented when there were certain social structures in place that supported certain bodies of people that we no longer have? We need to ask ourselves, what kind of environmental policies are being put in place by our governments? What kind of social responsibility are governments placing on organizations that produce? We need to ask these hard questions. And we need to know that our young people can be supported in whatever field they choose. Let's get behind our young people and let's make the difference. I am Dr. Idym. I yield the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And it was indeed a pleasure listening to your real application techniques and the small knickknacks of how we need to blend all these things and do actually. So, just two questions I would like to ask you, sir. Can I have the privilege to ask you, sir? Yeah. So one is, sir, you spoke about root level implementations. So can you give us some examples on what root level implementations can be taken?
Of course. Well, first of all, we need to look at using education as a tool, because education has been seen as something that we get finances from. So you educate our communities to go to work, to get a job, to make money, but we don't educate our communities to be empowered. So the implementation of education with empowerment can be one of those tools. Another tool is that we can empower our grassroots organization with government representation, because the grassroots organizations are close to the ground, but they don't have the governmental support. Because when you go to these meetings, conferences, you see grassroots on one side, you see government on another side. We must have a cross-sectoral approach to bring in transformation. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that is what I wanted to hear, because we normally talk about root causes and we talk about the root ingrained system, but we don't know how to implement them. So that is why I wanted to hear from you and let others also hear from you. And the last question that I would like to ask, since we are talking about developmental and contextually, you spoke about poverty and being affected by pandemic and all. Did you ever find that educators are going deep down to find out what are the missing puzzles in not being able to implement the real implementation strategies? Because as you said, we are talking and talking, but talking is not going to take action, and I am a person who talks before taking. I want an action immediately before I start the plan. So it's been high time we are talking and talking. So implementation has to happen immediately rather than talk.
Of
So what
course.
are the yeah what are the implementation techniques did you find that educators in your area of social culture having being implemented?
Yes, well, we have the youth entrepreneurship scheme here in Barbados, and it's very, very, very focused on empowering young people, not just with education to get a job, but education to run their own business. The other thing that I find is that teachers here have more support, because the government recognizes the importance of empowering teachers, because they are the first contact with our young people. And so I have seen good results here in the context of Barbados and also research and development. I have seen research and development that suggests that there is a turning of the tide taking place as we speak,
Mm.
where teachers are now realizing their social responsibility, not just to teach, but also to lift the minds, the mental perceptions of our
Exactly.
young people.
Exactly. That is what we wanted, because that the pandemic has affected the children and the parents. And one more thing is the children have been very resilient enough to combat these situations. Parents were not that resilient. The parents had work from home structure. They were not, and the children have really coped up very well in spite of being locked in the four walls in the house and blending to online learning and adopting the challenges faced to them. And at the same time, a lot of issues have been cropped up internally in the households also. So uh, let us all work together to create a wonderful healthy system for all the educators, all the children across the world, so that they are able to combat any uncertainty of any pandemic coming in the near future. We were quite resilient to combat because we have that kind of an education that we tolerated this hard bombardment. So the generation of today is very delicate. They are not able to handle mental health. They are not able to handle stress, and easily they give up. Easily they have the fear necking. So that is what you have highlighted these issues very well, sir. Thank you so much for having here. And gratitude to you, sir. Thank you so much. I would like to take a privilege to call Mr. Pratik Rajan Mungekar, sir, to highlight the issues of real implementation strategies. Sir, most welcome.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So today's my topic is understanding childhood and child development. Okay. So in order to work with children, it is important to understand what we mean by childhood. And in fact, it is more complex issue than is commonly recognized. So the understanding of childhood varies significantly around the world. So no universal consensus can be found as to what children needs for their optimum development, what environment best provide for those needs, and what form and a level of protection is appropriate for children at a specific age. So indeed, there is no agreement on the nature of childhood when children becomes adults or the goals that families aspire for their children. So there is no universal definition of childhood, yet many assumptions exist about what childhood is, how children develop, and the presumed capabilities and capacities of children. So traditional stage theories, which understood child development as a series of discrete stages, each associated with an approximate age range, have tended to influence how we understand development through childhood. So these theories, although now increasingly being challenged, continue to influence our thinking. So there continue to be five significant assumptions about childhood derived from these theories. So child development, first is child development is a universal process. So all children develop along the same trajectory or path towards adulthood and implies that a set of rules are followed throughout the process of child development. So differentiating factors such as cultural, temporal, contextual, and individual are largely ignored. So adulthood has normative status. Once a child reaches adulthood, he or she has full human status. Until adulthood, the child is considered to be in a state of immaturity, characterized by irrationality, incompetence, weakness, naivety, and innocence. So, in other words, everything a child does is basically a preparation for adulthood. So, childhood is not valued for and of itself only as a developmental process. Next, goals of child development are universal. So all cultures have the same ultimate goals for development. Yet, in reality, different cultures have significantly different aspirations for their children, and these differences influence the goals for their development. For instance, in most of the Western societies, The ultimate goals for development include the attainment of personal, social, and political autonomy, independence, and self sufficiency. Whereas in many other cultures, interdependence and integration are more highly valued. So the goals of development also differ within community context and cultures, whereby education may be emphasized for a boy child living in a middle class family, and a marriage and employment may be considered to be of high priority for a girl child from an you know impoverished circumstance, or one where girl education is not highly valued. So deviation from the norm indicates risk for the child. So there are assumptions about what constitutes normal behavior and activity at each stage of development, and any deviations, from these normal uh, behavior and activity at each stage of development, and any uh, you can say behaviors are deemed to be potential harmful for the child. So these assumptions are largely drawn from a Western model of childhood and fail to reflect the differences and realities of childhood experience in other cultural environments. So it assumes, for example, that all forms of work are harmful for young children, thus effectively pathologizing the many millions of children for whom work is necessity, or indeed recognizing the potential benefits for children associated with work. So children are passive players. So childhood is seen to be a process of acquisition of competencies and skills according to predetermined biological or psychological forces. It fails to acknowledge the extent to which children have agency to influence their own lives and development, and can make an active contribution to to their social environments. So many of these assumptions of childhood feed into a standard or universal model of childhood, where childhood is a period of time for nurturing, care, play, and learning in the family and the school, and free from the demands of responsibility or employment. However, this is not the reality for many millions of children throughout the world. So, a growing critic, one, I forgot his name, Lansdowne GP, okay, a growing critique of this universal Western centric view of childhood and child development has evolved in recent years, and replacing it with cultural theories which understand childhood as a cultural process deeply rooted in the social, economic, and cultural context of the child, and the various systems that influence and are influenced by the child's life. So within these approaches, three key elements within children's environments are seen to be influential to their development. One is context. So the physical and social settings children inhabit, the family, peers, social patterns, and the organization of their daily lives. Second key factor is culture. So the culturally regulated customs and child rearing practices, arrangements of arrangements for care and education, attitudes towards play, training, and disciplines. So this comes under culture. Third is social constructions. So the interpretation of childhood and development from the perspective of the child's parents and other influential adults in their lives, goals, and priorities for the development of children, and views on how these can be achieved. So, an additional critical factor contributing to the development of the child is the acknowledgement of children as active contributors in their own development and in the development of society. So children are not simply recipients of adult protection, but are social actors who demonstrate capacity to be involved. So children should be active participants and partners in actions and decisions affecting them and their lives. So the recognition that children are social actors cannot be understood. They must be involved. So thus, based on the these many above reflections, child development is a dynamic, interrelated, and continuous, influenced by a wide variety of internal. So in internal, you can say physical, psychological, socio-cultural, and spiritual. And external, in external, you can say family, peers, community, society, government, environment, and culture. So these are the factors and context. So highly dependent upon and influenced by the child's individual capacities, context, and culture, and his or her active involvement and partnership in decisions affecting his or her life. So the needs of children form the basis for a universal set of standards by which all children should be treated in order for them to achieve their full potential for health and development. So the Convention of the Rights of the Child codifies these needs and acknowledges them as human rights which all children are entitled to have fulfilled. Children's rights cannot be realized unless adults with responsibilities for children take the necessary action to make them a reality. So accordingly, the convention places responsibilities on governments and other adults to take all necessary action to ensure the realization of all rights for all children. So in summary, I would like to conclude that all children have rights that emanate from their humanity. In addition, all children have basic universal needs. These needs form a basic set of common standards necessary for optimal health and development. So children are entitled to be treated according to these common standards. So these standards impose obligations on adults to ensure their fulfillment. A commitment to fulfilling these obligations creates rights for children to have their needs met. And these rights have been codified into an international human rights treaty, the United Nations Conventions on the Right of the Child, which introduces obligation on governments and other responsible adults and agencies to protect and promote the rights of children necessary to fulfill their needs. So that's about this child development. And I tried to explain what is childhood exactly. So,
Yeah, I think, sir. First, I will just request you to have a glass of water first.
yeah.
You've been speaking.
No, I have a cough little bit because I was traveling since 3-4 days.
Yeah, so please have a glass of water before I ask you some challenging questions.
Okay.
So first it is very good to hear from a person who mostly talks about youth development programs, talking about early childhood sector. And hats off to you. You have very beautifully demonstrated what needs to be done, what parents need to do, and what is actually to be done by both the set of the educators and the child. About multiple dimensions, you spoke about multiple interdisciplinary approaches that has to be taken. And one question that I would like to ask you, whatever you spoke about, are you seeing it happening in real life?
No, actually. Okay.
It is very,
it's not happening. That's the sad truth.
It is very wonderful to hear from expert educators honestly saying no. We often fail to express our no, and this is the right time. We should be honest in building the healthy future of the children. That what is not happening should be mentioned that it is not happening, and I'm proud to have you.
Because if you want any change now, then this no comes
Yeah,
in.
definitely. That is what we educators are for. Unless if we don't say no now, then it will never happen.
It will happen, right?
So that is what I want an answer from you. Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah.
What is the reason behind that no?
There are so many reasons. Actually, see, my generation, okay, my childhood, and my parents gave me a different kind of approach, or in our Indian style, they call it as sanskars. Okay, so we have
Exactly.
got so much of sanskars, and we followed without questioning them. Okay, and that is missing nowadays. पेरेंट्स आर, वो ऐसा होता है ना कि हम नहीं कर पाए तो हमारे बच्चों को वो मिलना चाहिए, बट इसमें क्या होता है, बहुत ज्यादा कुछ मिल जाता है, एंड देन they don't know how to balance.
Exactly. That is what I'm trying to say. Every culture has its own set of sanskar based education, and I always emphasize on, when you talk about STEAM learning, when you talk about STEM learning, why don't we convert that STEAM into the sanskar based education? We have to adopt this module
and,
also.
and it's high time to visit our values.
Definitely, because we, on the one side, we want children to become modern. On the other side, we want children to be academically expert. And on the other side, we want them, अरे मेरा कहना नहीं मानता है, मेरे परवरिश में क्या गड़बड़ हो गई. So that is where developmental and contextual needs need to be arise, whether you, whatever part of the country you are, each country, each state, each educational system of every different area has their own set of values and culture. And I feel that the modern culture is accepting, implementing. Everyone is implementing, but why Indian system is not being implemented? We only talk कि हमें संस्कार डालना है, पर जब संस्कार डालने का टाइम आता है, पीछे हट जाते हैं. So we are only looking
child psychology in today's this world. The child psychology is been more glorified. Our times there is no कि बच्चे को मारोगे तो वो सुसाइड करेगा, ऐसा कुछ था ही नहीं. हम लोग मार खाते थे, फिर नेक्स्ट मिनट हाँ मम्मी क्या बनाया है. Okay,
that is why say we were very lucky enough to have the spanking of the parents.
Yeah,
because that is what made us today what we are.
That is missing today, and
that is missing today. Why? Because parents are in a rush to provide materialistic things, momentary materialistic things. अभी 2000 की चीज लेके आएंगे 2000 का और वो दे दिया बच्चे को. The child is not going to play for half an hour or 1 hour. That is not going to give him that happiness. He wants the time from the parents, whether you give it 15 minutes a day or whether you give it for 1 day full for your child. Because now if you ask parents, आप अपने बच्चे के बारे में बताइए, they don't know anything about the child because घर पे रहता ही नहीं है बच्चा. घर पे बच्चे रहते ही नहीं है. Either they are taking them to the creche, either they are taking them to 10,000 classes, whether the child is available or not, whether the child is interested or not interested. But social status पे अपना नाम कमाने के लिए कि my child is doing 10,000 classes, he is a master in everything, and at home he is a master of none and jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So that is what is happening. Let us emphasize on what the child wants. वही चीजों को बाहर लाए, वही चीजों को टैलेंट को बाहर लाए और उसी पे एम्फसाइज करें हम, rather than making him what do you call कि abracadabra के शो सब कुछ बन जाए, तो ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता है ना. So that is what I am very happy to hear from you about child psychology, about early childhood education, and I think you must keep on talking because you have had it in your childhood and that has made what you are today. So आपने संस्कारों से आपने अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ रह के वो देखा है, you experience किया. Now you are in such a position that you can talk very boldly on sanskar based education, blend them into the academics, how you can blend them, strategies and all. Hats off to you, sir, for being present here. And gratitude to you for highlighting this very core hidden NEP puzzle आपने आज पूरा कर दिया. Thank you so much. So my next speaker is, we will call, I am Ambassador Dr. Iman A. Alam, ma'am. Pleasure to have you, sir. Ma'am.
Yes, my dear sister, I am here.
Hello, dear sister Iman. Have you seen the PPT?
Yeah.
Yes, already I sent it in the group, my dear brother.
Group?
The group of NAB.
Acha, NEPCs. Okay, okay.
Also, Dr. Mahrain informed us in the group that she is coming. So I hope she can return. Okay. So can you share my screen, please?
Yes,
You
yes.
can?
Wait.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I need to thank IDYM for inviting me to participate in NAB program. Here we are talking about education, and today we will talk about developmental and contextual needs of children. So we have many rights related to childhood. We have many rights. My voice is clear?
I'm just sharing. Just a minute.
Okay, my voice is clear?
Yes, yes.
Am I audible?
You're audible.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So,
is it
please
visible?
put it on the slide share mode.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
Already he shared my slides. Okay. Now I need to be okay. So today I'll talk about rights of children. The most important right is education. So education is a right as the food, as press, as like any other rights. So today I'll show some practical experience related to me. Some of them are related to some Afro-Asian journeys inside my country and inside Africa and also inside Asia. But because of time, I need to summarize it. Today, I'll talk about simplification of science. So I used some of my books to be delivered to students at different levels. Here I'll talk about my journey with some of my books. First of them is the Diet and Innovation. Next, my dear brother. Diet and innovation, participation of students in scientific meetings and participation, and how to prepare scientific paper. And also some of my books, those books are related to scientific diplomacy. Next, my dear person. Also, I tried to simplify some advanced technologies like green bio-nanotechnology, pharmaceutical biotechnology, green biotechnology, and some advanced sciences and advanced technologies like this. Next, my dear brother. Also, because I am phytochemist and also biotechnologist, so I try to simplify some of my contents related to natural phytochemical products. I have a simple book related to natural phytochemical products for our life, herbal medicine from the land to our hand. Next, my dear brother. Yes. Here, it's my journey in different governments of Egypt, here in Cairo, in some schools. As you know, we have STEM schools for students. These students are clever than enough. So the schools invited me to do a symposium about the research, something like simplification of science, and to talk about the basics of scientific research, because we need to improve the skills of students. Next, my dear brother. Here, as you can see, I talked with these students about alphabets of a scientific paper. Beside the presentation and beside the data show is my poster. So I try to use different means to make the idea very simple to them. Next, my dear brother. To be honest, I entered the class. They are very inert. They are sleeping before start. I try to activate them. They are sitting beside their principals and their teachers. It's amazing for students to talk with them about scientific research and something like this, because as you know, they are still kids and some of them are adolescents. Sorry. I need to check voices. Okay, it's okay. Please, next, my dear brother. So I try to activate them to be interactive with me. Next. As you can see here, it's very easy now. They are participating with me in the issue. Next, my dear brother. I asked some of them to be presenter. He is presenting some of my topics. Next, my dear brother. Here, they are very happy after gaining some simple knowledge. Next. Little award. As I said before, we are doing something like successive awarding. As you can see here, students are very happy by simple awards. It's not because of the award itself, but because of motivation and because they are very happy that they are clever and they are presenters and so on. Next. Next. If you can see the difference between the first moment I entered this class, they are very inert, they giving me no attention, but after some time, they are very happy. And also I try to use different means of education, like play-based education, play-based learning, as you can see here, game-based learning, and so on, and inquiry-based learning. Next, please. Yes. Here, as you can see, principles of these schools. Here in government of Cairo. Next, my dear brother. So they are principals of different schools in Cairo. In another school, but they are not a child, they are adolescent. I talked with them about innovation and basics of scientific research. Next. Here also, they started to interact with me. They are participating with me in, I did brainstorming and I tried to ask some of them to be presenter and so on. I tried to activate and motivate them to be engaged, because as you know, talking about basics of scientific research is not an attractive issue, but if you can simplify it, so you can attract a student and attract adolescent to be with you, child student and adolescent to be with you. Next, my dear brother. Here, another group in another government, in Giza government. Also, we are here talking about science and diplomacy. Some of them are acting as organizers and some of them are acting as presenters. So this is something like a competition. Next, my dear brother. Yes, here we are celebrating. Next. Another event. In this event, as you can see, it's a mixture between adolescent and children. Next, my dear brother. First of all, you can see here, he is not, the boy is not engaged with us. He is not attracted to be active with us, but after some time, he interacted with us. Next, my dear brother. Yes, here he is with us and started to be interactive. He is listening. Next. Now we are celebrating. and he has the responsibility to carry the name of this diploma. This diploma is related to innovation and improvement of scientific research skills of students and youth researchers. Now he is celebrating with us, and he has his certificates and so on. Next. Yes, next. Next. Yes. Next. They are celebrating their success in this diploma. As I said before, it's a diploma about innovation and improvement of research skills of students and youth researchers here in hospitals. As you know, we have cancer hospital for child. It's called 57357. Here we went to hospitals to do something like awareness. Next. Here I am with my team. Yes, we are trying to do awareness to parents and also to some kids. Next. We are using simple things, some flowers and the balloons and so on. We are doing something like, as I said before, game-based learning, or we are doing our learning programs using games and using the playing process and so on. Thank you. Next. Yes. They are enjoying playing and awareness and motivation. Next. Also in another hospital related to cancer. Next. This is a part of my team, part of my teamwork. Next. Here in another place, this is also my team. We are doing something like awareness programs here in Giza government. We are guests of National Research Center to improve research skills of students and youth researchers. Also, we are working on the level of kids and adolescents and youth and so on. Next, my dear brother. Here inside my college, we have some guests from outside. They heard about our group from their colleagues. For example, this girl is a sister of one of my students. So she heard about the program and she engaged with us, and she is the youngest active attendant in the workshop. This workshop also is related to improvement of research skills of students and youth researchers. In these workshops, we are talking about education, we are talking about innovation, we are talking about intellectual property rights, we are talking about simplification of science. Next, my dear brother. About diet and innovation, I have a journey also. We invited some students from different schools around our college. Next, my dear brother. They visited my college, and I delivered some lectures related to diet and innovation to these students. Next. Next, my dear brother. Yes. Students inside my college. Yes. They visited our college, and we did something related to awareness at different levels. We performed different lectures to them because we need to engage academic life and school life. We need to engage kids with the academia life because it will do something like improving their brain and also intellectual property will be improved, innovation activities and so on will be improved. Next, my dear brother. Yes, this kid is Muhammad Wael. He is less than 5 years. He engaged in my program. And I learned him many things related to ethics of scientific research, basics of scientific research. Now he is in Hurghada, another government. They are celebrating his success. And beside me is Dr. Hisham. He did now. Allah bless him, inshallah. He is a very supportive person to these kids and also to youth. At this time, I am consultant related to innovation activities and something like this improvement of research skills of students and youth researchers at Nahda University. We are trying to improve innovation ability and also research skills of students. We are trying to distribute the culture of innovation and appreciation of IBR and also ethics of scientific research. However, we started very, very early, but it's highly required. We need to start from kids. Next, my dear brother. Not only in Egypt, I try to distribute this culture outside Egypt. Here I am in Nigeria. However, I am in COVID, in malaria and typhoid fever. But I try to be better because we are reliving our pains by lectures and by changing the life of students. So here I'm trying to talk with them about how to keep our environment very clean. And I'm using, I'm playing with them. I'm using balloons and something like this to make them happy. And I'm distributing awareness. Next. However, inside the hospital, I'm doing a lecture, many lectures related to basics of scientific research. I'm trying to motivate kids inside the hospital to be happy and also to be affordable. This is my lovely, she is my second mother. She is with me, supporting me to support others. I said to her, inshallah, we will meet in paradise. She is Prof. Dr. Hayat. She is the Egyptian. She is accommodating in Nigeria at that time. We are together, next to my dear brother, we are together in distributing awareness. And also we are doing some lectures inside hospitals and inside the schools. Next, this is our journey with kids in different countries. Here in Nigeria, here we are asking them to make the place very clean. These kids came from Niger to Nigeria. And they are, as you can see, they are very little, but we talked about how to keep our environment very clean. So they are enjoying cleaning the place. I think I finished. So thank you very much. Let's have a journey related to education. We must educate all over the globe because it's our responsibility. We are not responsible, as I said before, we are not responsible on Egypt, on Cairo. Don't make it very narrow. make it very wide. We need to support others. So when we are talking about rights of childhood, we are talking about education. The first priority is education, because education means that no violence, no terrorism, many bad things will be eradicated by education, because education is a light. I'm saying to my students, education is a light. So nothing bad will be done in light. Because of light, nothing, thank you. Because of light, nothing bad will be done. So appreciation to all of you. And when we are talking about the right of childhood, we can't forget their right for education, because it equals their right in life. So I tried every place I am visiting. However, for 1-2 days, I'm trying to do a message. I'm trying to leave fingerprints. I'm trying to be remembered by distributing education, by making the science very, very, very easy and very reachable. So please continue in simplification of science, continue in supporting the students. Thank you very much. Continue in supporting all national educational policies to be international educational policy. So I am calling for IEP, not only NEP, appreciation to India, but I'm calling for IEP. Let's look for the best policy to be highlighted all over the globe, to have our IEP, not only NEP. Appreciation to all of you. And the right of all humanity is to be well educated. And education must be practiced, not on paper. Thanks again and again to IDYM for inviting me to be with you. I am very happy to be with you every day. I think now I am daily at NAV. I am very happy to be with all of you. Great thanks to Ravi sir, great thanks to Madame Ginas, and also to Miss Donel, and my dear lovely sister, Dr. Sonel, and also Dr. Buja. Appreciation to all speakers before and after me, and all respected attendees. Appreciation to all of you, and thank you very much.
Awesome, ma'am. Awesome. I think looking at your pictures and looking at the way you are empowering educators across the globe through your practical implementation programs, that is actually what is the need of the heart. And you are actually doing the action rather than talking more. So that shows that we have to pick up the torch and start running rather than holding the torch and standing in one place. The other person will come and take the torch from us. So don't wait for anyone. If you have the passion in you, if you have the courage in you, and if you have the awareness of the strategies and the implementation techniques, don't stay behind, march forward ahead, like Iman ma'am is walking. And I think we all have covered each and every aspect. Pratik sir, Iman ma'am, and Desley sir, we have spoken about what on the humanitarian side of education, what we need to do rather than go for academic knowledge, rather than go for bookish knowledge. That is not the need of the heart. Academically, the children will pick up the studies. They will shine in their own careers and everything. But what is going to lag behind is the humanistic culture. And that is lacking. Of late, that is lacking. So we need to highlight the core issues of what needs to be done, what strategies to be implemented, how we all can connect together, learn from each other. Because I think with my 30 or 32 topics over here, each and every educator is so passionate to come forward and speak his heart out. No one is going to stop you, no one is going to block you. You are free to please select the topic. If you have the expertise in you, we are all there to welcome you with respect and to bring a change. Let us pick up this, be the change first. So I think, thank you, Iman ma'am, for highlighting the beautiful issues, highlighting the wonderful implementation strategies on the ground level. Because when we say the soldiers fight on the border, so they are actually fighting on the border rather than talking. So the same way, Edu warriors also should start talking, implementing rather than talking more. Karo zada, bate kam karo. That is the need of the hour now. So I think Iman ma'am is there. Ma'am, Berry ma'am is there. Has she joined?
Yes, my dear sister, I think she is with us.
Okay, Marin ma'am, are you there on the screen?
She's not there.
Yes,
She's
she
not there.
joined
Okay.
us, but maybe problem in internet.
No problem, no problem.
But I
In
saw
fact,
her several times.
yeah, I think we all need to deeply and with bottom of our hearts need to pray for Marin ma'am. She has been going to under severe medical illness, and let us all really, really pray for her through IDYM family from all of us from the universe to give her all the energies to recover as soon as possible so that she's back in action because she is a passionate educator. She looks forward to really be a part of the session, but her health is not allowing her. So let us all pray for her just for half a minute of silence for her deep in her heart so that she bounces back into action soon. So just for half a minute, let us just close our eyes for her. Thank you so much, everyone. So now I take forward for Betkar sir to give the review of the session. As usual, I think any other participants are there. Do you want to share something? You're most welcome. Betkar sir, please welcome.
Thank you, Sonal Madam,
Greetings of the day.
and all the participants as a resource person, educators, Dr. Pratik sir, Dr. Iman Madam, and Dr. Jaisley sir. We have presented the thoughts about the today's important topic related to childhood education. The resource persons, Dr. Desley said about the education as a tool. It's a very correct one. By using this a power tool, we can develop the childhood of the students and their future also. Secondly, Dr. Pratik sir said about the childhood development and the culture related to all these things related to our sanskar. Iman madam is also having a practical approach how she developed the childhood with innovative ideas in her school. So every resource person on the way trying to explore more and more on this topic. The childhood basically is the short trailer of our life. Students in the childhood they try to grasp more and more things from the surrounding. If they nurtured very properly with the atmosphere given in the school or in the surrounding, they should follow a correct path. So in education also, the students which are in leading position in the society, they are completely with their cultured childhood because of the elders at the home or the best teachers, those who are daily inspiring them to participate in various activities, maybe cultural, maybe innovative, or maybe the types where they can grasp more and more within that period. So it's a very important aspect of national NEP, and every day I am learning from you very different and the topics which are not in my range of thinking different topics when I read this slogan or the advertisement. I specially thanks to all the IDYM team group, sir, and you madam also, Sonal madam. Daily you are very perfectly analyzing and encouraging to all so that they are eager to participate and give more and more through this dais. And I am very habitual to learn and to listen to join every day, maybe full time or maybe part time. Thank you madam for giving best organizing this speech for all. Thank you madam.
Sir, your presence is highly valued, and we have, I think I specifically look forward that we have at least a senior person among us, so that if we are wrong anyway, you are there to guide us. Also, we all learning from each other also, and it's just not my mission; it's the mission of each and every educator over here to see that the next generation of learners are as wonderful as we are. What we have got, they should not feel the lacking of it in any way. So, NEP policy has been talked about a lot is being dive deep under, but we are not getting the actual implementation techniques. So here, my main aim was to bring out all the educators from their own shells. बाहर निकलो
Hello,
अपने cocoon से.
hello.
And yes, sir,
Sorry to
yes,
disturb you, but
yes.
Professor Merin is there. She just joined.
Okay, so I'll just wind up in 1 minute. So that is all for today. I think let us all cooperate together. Thank you, Bekir sir, for your warm presence. And Merin ma'am, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I am here. I'm just
God bless
hoping
you.
that I am audible.
God
Can
bless
you
you,
hear
ma'am.
me?
God bless you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to IDYM. And I've heard majority of the speakers so far. Please excuse my voice. I'm sorry that it sounds the way it is, but this is such a passionate topic of mine. And I just wanted to say I agree with every single thing that everyone has said. And I ask God to bless every speaker in IDYM for doing this because every one of us learns from each other every day. And today's topic is very close to my heart because education for our children is key to the education and success of our future. And I always say this, our children and our youth are not leaders of tomorrow. They're already leaders of today, just preparing for tomorrow. So when we're talking about something like development and contextual needs of our children, we have to look at this very holistically because developmental of our children and developmental education of our children runs in different segments, as we know if we do developmental psychology. We know it runs in their different age groups. And we as educators know that when we have to follow through with trying to educate them, there's different methodologies that we would use within those age groups to get into their minds, to get into their frameworks, to try and get through to them. But if we look at today's world and the world that we are living in, the one thing that we have been taught by the universe instead of us being taught by mere books and theory is that there are way exterior methods of learning that our children require, us as in adults require in order for us to facilitate great education within ourselves. For example, if you as an adult right now are listening to me, and I know this from personal experience, if I am somebody who is sitting as an adult with majority issues around me, whether it be family orientated, whether it be social orientated, whether it be a financial complication, if everything is just not right with my shelter, with my food, etc., etc., am I as an adult able to give off 200% of myself? No. So can you imagine a little child who is coming to you looking and looking for that deserving education, but who himself or herself at that young tender age does not have the security, does not have the safety, does not have their food met, does not have their basic needs met as a child? Education for them ought to be free, yet they are so scared because the fees are not paid in certain schools. I've said this before. I have been to locations in Africa where I've seen children sitting under trees so eager to learn, not necessarily with a pen and with colorful highlighters, but with just a piece of pencil and a paper. And the educator there being so passionate to teach under that tree, regardless of conditions. So, when we're talking about contextualizing education and the needs of our children, we really need to look into exactly the context of that. How do we develop our children within each of these different categories? How can we build on those relationships that they need to develop, whether it be in the physical sense, the cognitive sense, whether it be in the social sense? Because remember, each one of these, pardon me, is directly related to the socio-cultural sense. And that socio-cultural essence and environmental influence is what definitely impacts directly on the developmental issues that our children have with education. So when we want to look at how to contextualize developmental education, we need to look at all of these different factors. Key factors, like I said before, our children are deserving of the best of shelters, the best of education, which ought to be free. Really, we shouldn't have to be creating these barriers between a private sector and a public sector, etc. We shouldn't have to do this because this is creating barriers between our children themselves, creating barriers between the mindsets of the people and the children. Why do we want to do this? Each of our children have passion for education. Each one might be passionate about a different subject or object, like my dear sister Iman has just showed. You have little ones who are so keen on certain aspects that you don't even realize them. And sometimes it is the teacher and educator that is able to tell you as the parent what is the passion, what is the goodness, what is the best subject that your child is good at. And you might want to disagree or agree. But the point is, remember, that teacher knows your child sometimes a little bit better than you do because you are so busy with the rat race of life. So I will not speak much longer other than to say thank you so much again to IDYM for these lovely platforms, to each one of you. I say thank you, and thank you for this little opportunity of giving me the chance to talk. But I do feel, and I agree, yes, my sister Iman, I agree, it shouldn't be an EP, it needs to be IEP. It has to be all over the world. We have to educate each of our children equally to give each one the chance, because each one of them is already, like I said, leader of today, growing and preparing for tomorrow. And their tomorrow is our tomorrow. So if we don't pave the way correctly today by contextualizing it properly for the best of their development, then we are looking for a little bit of an issue when it comes to developmental goals being reached. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate the time and for listening to me. And I do apologize for the voice and for the no video. But thank you so much. God bless everyone.
Pleasure, ma'am, pleasure. And I think our half a minute or 1 minute of prayers really worked because the universe wanted you to be present here today anyhow. So gratitude to the universe for sending you here, for hearing your passion, for hearing your words. And that is all that we all want, all the educators to be in sound health, sound mind, sound body, so that we empower each and everyone with the true knowledge, with the real learnings. So before I take a leave, I would like to call all the speakers once again on the platform for one target point advice for the educators, for the people around the globe on the developmental and contextual needs of children. What is the need of the heart? A short action plan. I would like to start from Pratik Rajan Mugekar sir. Pratik sir, are you there? Pratik sir, are you there? Okay. I would like to start with Desle sir. Are you there, Desle sir?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, yeah. Please come on the screen for one short advice, one target point advice for all the people, for all the educators on developmental and contextual needs. What is the perfect action plan that they can do? One advice from you. Message.
Sure. I love your questions. Your questions always put me on the spot. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I have been looking seriously at reform from the perspective of involving all parties. For example, reaching out to the Minister of Education, the Director of Youth, and then looking at how we can actually all come up together with a policy booklet that outlines some of the strategies that can be implemented. This is something I'm really thinking about from the perspective of changing our society. If it's a whole systems approach, then it means that we can't leave out any particular group or organization. We must get everyone involved. First of all, we must start by engaging our youth, using our social media that we have access to, and find out what they want. I think that our youth are able to tell us what they want better than we can predict.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, need of the heart. Each and every word resonates with what is actually needed. That is the need of the heart now. Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. And my next one is, I think, Iman ma'am, for target point advice message to everyone.
Yes, my dear sister, just I want be the nation, however, if you are alone. So we have a responsibility to educate. So we are talking about childhood rights. So I think the most important thing is education. as my dear sister, Prof. Ambassador Dr. Mehran, she said and highlighted the issue of free education. So it's very important to distribute science and knowledge all over the globe without paying anything. So we are paying our attention to science and knowledge, so it must be free. Thank you very much and appreciation
so
to all
much.
of you. Most
Thank you, sir. I think each and every target point, I think at the end of the session is the need of the heart today. And that is what we need to highlight, we need to implement, and we need to put this action into, plan into action. So, Marine ma'am, are you there for one advice, a message for everyone?
I am, and yes, I think my parting point to everyone would be that if we want to really facilitate education across the world, I wouldn't say just across any continent or country, across the world, we need to be able to do it holistically, freely, and justly, because every child is most deserving of the best of education. And I think we also need to stop ignoring the fact that educators are human beings. As much as we'd like to empower and grow our children, as times keep going, we need to also empower and keep growing and giving our educators the time and dedication and respect that they also need. So yes, I believe that we need to work holistically, and I agree with what the brother has said as well. We need to go into each of our ministers, governments, and all try and get together to work together and make sure that our children do get free education across the board that is just, that entitles them to what is their right. And let us just keep growing to empower our educators even more and more, because they too deserve that recognition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Truly, I hope this wish of yours will be fulfilled very soon, and we all wish you also to recover very fast. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your honorable presence over here. And before we wind the session, anyone wants to speak anything? You can take just 1 minute. So I think good things ultimately have to come to an end. And before I wind up, I would like to say, if a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, the excitement, and the mystery of the world we live in. Developing a child's personality is an essential element in today's competitive world. A developed personality is definitely a path to success. And let us all empower each other. Let us all be together for each other. And thank you, everyone. Day 19 NEP series, Developmental and Contextual Needs of Children, successfully highlighted the core issue. Gratitude to IDYM team. Gratitude to Ravi sir for giving us a wonderful platform to highlight the core issues of what is missing in the NEP series 2020. And I take my leave. Heartfelt thanks to each and every speaker for their valuable, wonderful, insightful learnings over here. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Appreciation to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the participants for always being there to watch us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your amazing moderation. Thank you for your amazing moderation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful presence.
Thank you.